I noticed him for the first time on my walk home. It was late past midnight, maybe closer to 1. I had just finished closing up at the diner, where I worked the evening shift, and the city was in that eerie, quiet state where only the occasional car passed by, and the streetlights hummed like they were the only things alive. That was when I saw him. A man standing at the far end of the sidewalk, near the intersection, not moving, just standing there, half hidden in the shadows. Something about him was off. I couldn't see his face clearly, but the way he stood rigid, motionless, made my stomach tighten. I told myself it was nothing, just another night in the city. Drunks, homeless people, weirdos, you get used to it. But as I walked another block, I made the mistake of glancing back. He was closer. Not by much, maybe 20 feet closer than before, but I hadn't heard him move. No footsteps, no sound at all. I swallowed hard, quickened my pace. It was nothing. I was tired, paranoid. Another glance. He was closer again. This time, my stomach dropped. I wasn't the kind of person who got scared easily. I grew up in the city. I knew how to take care of myself, but this was different. I forced myself not to run. Running would only make me look like prey. Instead, I took my phone out, pretending to text, but really using the reflection in the screen to check behind me. He was still there, closer. I turned a corner sharply, walked faster, glanced back. Gone. My pulse hammered in my throat. Had he turned away, slipped into an alley? Maybe I had overreacted. I reached my apartment building, breathless, unlocked the door, went inside, and locked it behind me. Safe. I let out a shaky laugh. Maybe I really had been imagining things. Then, from the peephole, I checked the hallway outside. Empty. I went through my usual routine. Shower, heat up leftovers, sit on the couch and zone out to some late-night infomercial, letting the glow of the TV lull me into forgetting the weirdness from earlier. But then, just as my eyes started to droop, a noise. Soft, faint, like fabric brushing against a wall. I sat up, ears straining. My apartment was on the 3rd floor, no reason for any noise outside my door this late at night. There it was again, a slow, deliberate shuffle. I moved carefully to the peephole. Nothing. The hallway was empty. I exhaled. Maybe one of my neighbors. I turned back toward the couch. A knock. I froze. It wasn't loud, just 3 soft taps. No one knocked at this hour. I forced myself to look through the peephole again. Still nothing. Another knock. A whisper followed this time. Let me in. My throat closed. The voice was barely audible, but something about it made my skin crawl. I didn't move, didn't breathe. Seconds passed. The hallway remained empty. I stepped away from the door, slowly, carefully. Then, a single, drawn-out scratch against the wood. I turned every lock. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, everything felt normal, almost like the night before hadn't happened. But then I left for work, and I saw the scratches. Thin, jagged lines running down my apartment door. I nearly quit my job that day, nearly packed a bag and left the city, but I didn't. I told myself it was some dumb prank. A neighbor with a weird sense of humor. That night, I locked every door, every window. I pushed a chair under the doorknob. It didn't matter, because at exactly 3:13 a.m., the knocks came again, soft, rhythmic. Then the whisper, "Let me in." I stayed perfectly still in my bed, staring at the door. The handle twisted. Not violently, not forcefully, just a slow, deliberate turn. Testing. I held my breath until it stopped. Morning couldn't come fast enough. For 3 more nights, it was the same. Knocking, scratching, that voice. Each time, it felt like it was getting bolder, more confident. Then, on the 4th night, I woke up to silence. No knocks, no voice, just quiet. I wanted to believe it was over. Then I heard it, not at the door, inside. A slow shuffle, just past my bedroom. Something was in my apartment. I reached for my phone, heart pounding. The screen lit up. 3:13, then, soft, deliberate footsteps. Coming closer. I held my breath as the steps stopped just outside my bedroom door. A pause. Then the handle turned. The door creaked open an inch. A whisper, "Let me in." It was inside. I don't remember much after that. Just panic, running, grabbing my keys and bolting from the apartment, leaving everything behind. I spent the night in my car, parked outside a 24-hour diner. I never went back. It's been months. I moved to a different city, different apartment, third floor again, and for a while, it was quiet. Then, last night, I woke up at 3:13 a.m. to a knock, soft, rhythmic, followed by a whisper. "Let me in." It found me, and this time, I think I let it in. It was around 11:30 p.m. when I first saw him. I was driving home from my sister's house, exhausted from a long day. The roads were nearly empty, just the occasional pair of headlights in the distance. The night was heavy, one of those humid summer nights where the air clings to your skin, thick and oppressive. I don't remember why I looked in the rearview mirror. Just a habit, I guess. But when I did, I saw him, a man, sitting in my back seat. I slammed the brakes so hard the tires screeched. My heart shot into my throat. I twisted around, and there was no one there. The back seat was empty. For a long moment, I just sat there, gripping the wheel, trying to steady my breathing. You're just tired. That's what I told myself. A trick of the light, a shadow, my mind playing games with me. I took a deep breath, shook it off, and kept driving. But the uneasy feeling didn't go away. 15 minutes later, I was almost home. Just a few more streets, a couple of turns. I kept glancing in the mirror, even though I knew there was nothing there. It was stupid, paranoid, but then I saw him again. Same place, back seat. This time, I got a better look. His face was wrong. Not in any grotesque way. No blood, no missing features, but it was off. Like a bad drawing of a person. The proportions slightly skewed, the eyes a little too deep set, the mouth stretched just a bit too wide, and he was smiling. A slow, creeping grin. I didn't slam the brakes this time. I didn't want to, because a part of me, a small, terrified part, was afraid that if I stopped, he'd be real. I kept driving, kept my eyes on the road, didn't look back. I pulled into my driveway, hands shaking as I shifted into park. And then, a whisper from behind me, so close I could feel the breath on my ear. "Are you going to invite me in?" I lunged for the door handle, yanked it open, and threw myself out of the car. I hit the pavement hard, my knees scraping against the concrete, but I didn't care. I scrambled to my feet and turned. The back seat was empty. The whole car was empty. I stood there, gasping for breath, staring into the shadows. Nothing moved. I locked the car, ran inside, and didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I tried to convince myself it had all been a stress-induced hallucination. I was tired, overworked. Maybe I had dozed off for a second at the wheel and dreamed it. That's what I told myself. Until I checked the dashcam. I had installed it a few months ago after a minor accident, just a small camera mounted near the rearview mirror. It recorded everything, even when the car was off. I pulled up the footage from the night before, fast-forwarded to my drive home, and my blood turned to ice. Because at 11:43 p.m., for exactly 6 minutes, the footage was black. Not static, not an error message, just pure empty darkness. Like something had been there, and it didn't want to be seen. I decided I wasn't driving that car anymore. I called a friend, told him I was having some electrical issues, and asked if he wanted to buy it cheap. He agreed without hesitation. That night, I heard my car alarm go off. I bolted upright in bed, heart hammering. Then, click, the sound of a car door unlocking. I grabbed my phone, turned on the security camera app, and my stomach dropped. The driver's side door was open, and something was sitting in the back seat, smiling. I was done. The next morning, I didn't just sell the car, I had it towed. Told my friend I'd explain later. I took the bus to work, and for the first time in days, I felt normal again. That night, I was walking home from the bus stop when I heard footsteps behind me. Soft, measured. I turned. No one was there. I started walking faster. So did the footsteps. Then, a voice. That same voice. "Are you going to invite me in?" I ran. I don't remember unlocking my front door. I don't remember slamming it shut behind me. But when I turned, the man was standing outside. Not on the street. Not on the sidewalk. Right up against my door. Watching me. Still smiling. I never saw him move. But when I blinked, he was gone. I haven't seen him since. But sometimes, at night, when I pass by a dark window, I catch a glimpse of a reflection. A face that isn't mine. Smiling, waiting. And I know He's just waiting for me to invite him in. If I had taken the stairs that day, none of this would have happened. But I was running late and the elevator was faster. I'd been working at Markham Raines for 3 years in an accounting firm in a bland, beige office building in downtown Chicago. The kind of place where every hallway looked the same, every cubicle was identical, and the highlight of your day was finding a fresh pot of coffee in the break room. Nothing strange ever happened there. Until that morning, I stepped into the elevator like usual, balancing a coffee in one hand and my laptop bag in the other. The doors slid shut, and I pressed the button for the 7th floor. The elevator hummed to life. Then, just as the doors were about to open, it stopped. Not with the usual smooth halt, but with a sudden jarring shudder. The lights flickered, and for a split second, I felt weightless. Then, silence. The doors didn't open. The panel above me blinked. 6. That didn't make sense. Markham Raines didn't have a 6th floor. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Maybe the building had some unused storage level, something they didn't advertise. But when the doors finally slid open, the air inside the elevator changed. It felt wrong. Cold, but not in a normal way. Like the air itself wasn't meant to be breathed. The hallway ahead of me was dark. The overhead fluorescents buzzed faintly, flickering in and out like they were struggling to stay awake. No cubicles, no desks, just a long, empty corridor. I pressed the 7 button again and again. Nothing. The elevator didn't move. I stepped forward just enough to lean out and check the hull. The floor was covered in a thin layer of dust. The walls had peeling wallpaper, damp in places like there had been a leak at some point. It looked abandoned. But the worst part, something smelled wrong, like old wood and mildew. And something else, something metallic. A sound echoed from down the hall, soft, deliberate, footsteps. I yanked my foot back inside the elevator and started mashing the closed door button like my life depended on it. The doors groaned slow, too slow. The footsteps grew louder. Then, they stopped. Right before the doors shut completely, I saw it, a shape, just at the edge of the flickering light. Tall, unmoving, watching. Then, darkness. The elevator shook, then lurched upward. The doors opened on the 7th floor like nothing had happened, like the 6th floor didn't exist. I stumbled out, my heart slamming against my ribs. The office was exactly how I'd left it. Phones ringing, people typing, laughter from the break room. Normal, too normal. No one else had seen it. No one else knew. I tried to push it out of my mind. Maybe I had imagined it. But then, right before lunch, I got an email. No subject, no sender, just one sentence. Don't take the elevator. I stared at it, pulse hammering. Then, before I could even think about forwarding it, the message deleted itself. I felt a chill crawl down my spine. I took the stairs for the next few days. I didn't talk about it. I didn't even look at the elevator. But on Friday, I slipped up. I was exhausted. It was late. I just wanted to get home, so I stepped inside. The doors shut. I pressed L for the lobby. The elevator started to move, then stopped. The panel blinked. 6. I felt my stomach drop. This time, I didn't step forward. I didn't breathe. I just stared at the closed doors, willing them to stay shut. Then, knock, knock. The sound came from the other side. I squeezed my eyes shut. Another knock. Soft, rhythmic. Then, the doors slid open. I didn't move. I couldn't move. Something was standing there. Not a person. Not anymore. It was Ron. Its skin was too smooth, too stretched, like it had been pulled over something else. Its head tilted, eyes too dark, too deep. And when it opened its mouth, it smiled. Too wide, too many teeth. It took a step forward, and I ran. I don't remember how I got out. One second I was in the elevator, the next I was in the lobby, gasping for air. I quit my job that night, moved across the city. For months, nothing happened. Then, one night, in my new apartment, I woke up to a notification. An email. No subject. No sender. You took the elevator. A knock sounded at my front door. Soft. Rhythmic. I didn't answer, but I know it's still out there. Waiting. And I know one thing for sure. The next time those doors open to the 6th floor, I won't be fast enough. The first time I saw the door, I thought I was imagining things. It was in my mother's house, well, my house now, after she passed away. A small two-story home on the outskirts of town. Nothing remarkable. I'd grown up there, knew every inch of it. Or at least, I thought I did. But last week, while clearing out her things, I found it. A door at the end of the upstairs hallway. It shouldn't have been there. That hallway ended at the linen closet always had. But now there was something else. A narrow wooden door painted white. It looked old, older than the rest of the house. The paint was peeling at the edges. The brass knob was tarnished, and something about it made my skin crawl. I stood there for a long time staring. Then I reached out, hesitated, pulled my hand back. I told myself I was tired. Grief did strange things to the mind. I turned away, went downstairs, and convinced myself the door had never been there at all. 2 nights later, I woke up to a sound, soft, scraping. I sat up, heart pounding. The house was silent. Then, there it was again, a slow, dragging scrape coming from upstairs. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and stepped into the hall. The sound stopped, but the door was open. Not much, just an inch or two. My breath caught. I had locked up before bed. I was sure of it. I stepped forward, reached out, then stopped. From inside the darkened room, I heard breathing, shallow, wet, like someone struggling to inhale. I backed away, ran downstairs, didn't sleep for the rest of the night. The next morning, in the daylight, it seemed absurd. I had to check. I grabbed a crowbar from the garage just in case. The door was closed again. This time, I didn't hesitate. I turned the knob and pushed. Inside, a room I had never seen before. It was small, barely bigger than a closet. The walls were lined with faded wallpaper, peeling at the corners. A single wooden chair sat in the center, and against the far wall. A mirror, large, antique, its glass warped with age. The frame was ornate, carved with patterns that made my stomach twist to look at. But the worst part? There was no reflection. I stared at it, my mind scrambling for an explanation. Then, something moved inside the glass. Not me, something else. Something watching. I slammed the door shut, and for the first time in my life, I ran out of my own home. That afternoon, I drove to the town records office. I needed to know. The house had been built in 1928. My mother bought it in the 80s, but before that, there was nothing. No record of previous owners, no construction permits. Like it had simply appeared one day. I asked the clerk if she had anything older. She hesitated, then left and returned with a single yellowed folder. I flipped through the pages, my hands shaking. And then, a newspaper clipping. Family vanishes from home on edge of town. The date was 1943. The article described a mother, father, and child who had disappeared without a trace. The house had been searched, but no sign of them was ever found. I looked closer at the grainy black and white photograph, and my blood ran cold. Because the house in the picture, it was mine. That night, I locked my bedroom door, tried to sleep. I woke up at 3:12 a.m. The door was open again. Not just the bedroom door, the other one. I heard the breathing before I saw it. I turned my head slowly and nearly screamed. The mirror. It was no longer reflecting the room. Instead, it showed something else. A darkened hallway stretching into blackness. And from deep within that darkness, a figure, tall, twisted, crawling toward the glass. I bolted upright, reaching for my phone, and the figure stopped. Its head snapped up. It saw me. Then, with slow, deliberate movements, it pressed its hands against the inside of the glass. A horrible, wet screech filled the room. I lunged for the door, and the mirror shattered. I packed my things. I didn't care about selling the house. I didn't care about anything except getting out. But as I reached the front door, I heard it. A whisper, coming from behind me. Slow, almost playful. Don't go. I ran, didn't look back, didn't stop driving until I was hours away. I rented an apartment in another state, tried to forget. Then, last night, a letter arrived. No return address, just a single yellowed piece of paper. And in the center, written in my mother's handwriting, "You let it out."